Hey everybody, today I want to talk about the four different types of politics. And I'm going to use music as a reference to each one of these types of politics so it's easier to remember. The key in being a good leader is to recognize each one of these types and know what they are and to listen to them. Okay, so what are the four types? There is the waltz, disco, rock and roll, and country. Okay, so let's start with the first one, the waltz. This is when you agree with the politics. You're in lockstep with the politics. You're doing a waltz, you're doing a dance, a perfect harmony across the dance floor. That's the waltz. This means that the politics does no depreciable harm, does not destroy morale, the project, your leadership, the team, etc. You can make the team aware of the politics in this situation. It's okay because it does no harm. A good example of this I like to use is branding. Okay, so for example, let's say you're taking on a project where you're carrying forward or making the next generation of a project that was started by a director, and then you want to keep the name to make the director happy. Fine, I totally understand that. Politics makes perfect sense. I'm in agreement with it. Let's move forward with it. I like it. Let's do it. Okay, it doesn't hurt anything, doesn't do anything. It's a waltz. Okay. The second is disco. Disco is where you're out in the middle of the dance floor doing your disco thing, and everybody's standing around you, watching you. This is when you do not agree with the politics. The politics is actually harmful. It can actually diminish the team. It can actually hurt the team or your morale or whatever, the leadership. This is really important because this is where you need to take action. And notice how I say you need to take action. You need to be the one in the middle of the dance floor dancing around while everybody's watching you. You're taking the risks so your team doesn't have to. You're shielding your team. There's a great TED Talk by Simon Sinek that talks about this. Highly recommend it. Okay? You're shielding your team so they can innovate. You're the one in the middle of the dance floor dealing with the politics. Okay? So what's really important about this is that the key is, as a good leader, is to know when to make this a disco. Okay, is it really important enough to make it a disco? If it's a nothing burger, don't make a big deal out of it. Okay, but if it's really important, you go out, you take the risk, shield your team, do the disco. The next is rock and roll. Okay, this is where you're banging your head in agreement. You're like, yeah, it's a good beat. You know, you may not like the song, it's a good beat. You're banging your head, yeah, you're in agreement with it, but it doesn't mean anything. Okay, this politics doesn't mean anything, and you're just like in agreement. It's not worth it, not worth the fight. You're in agreement. Yes, I understand it. Okay, I'm banging my head in agreement with the beat. That's rock and roll. The politics is not harmful. It's actually kind of superfluous. It doesn't really mean anything. A great example of this would be adding a name of a manager to your project or inviting them to a meeting. The manager is only doing this so that they can show their management that they're involved, even though they're not. Okay, it doesn't really matter. It means nothing. And in this case, it's actually good to tell the team, hey, you might see this manager being invited or their name is on the project, but they're really not doing anything. They're just doing this to meet their performance plan, to meet a milestone, to show their management that they're working. But they're not going to help. And as a matter of fact, during the meeting, they're probably doing something else while they're listening to your meeting. They're writing some report, not even there in spirit. So that's rock and roll. Okay. The next one is country, and this is the most important one. And I apologize to all the country fans out there, but for me, I use country because I don't get it. I don't understand it. No matter how many times I listen to country music, I don't get it. Well, it's the same thing with the politics. No matter how many times I listen to the politics, I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on. This is the most important one. This is the dangerous one because you need to say, is this disco? Is this rock and roll? Or is this a waltz? Is there some piece of information that I am missing that explains the politics so that I can define it in one of the other categories? Or is the person who's creating the politics just wiped out of their mind and it means absolutely nothing? They're coming out of left field and you're like, what's going on? Okay. This is really important. You need to figure out which one it is and then deal with it. So, as a side note, just as a recommendation, something that I've done in the past is to help with the politics is sometimes I'll pass the politics up to a governing body. A lot of organizations have like an architecture committee or a resource management committee or some form of committee that is made up of people across the organization, and their job is to make decisions or decide where you're going or what you're doing. And so sometimes I'll pass the politics up to them, and they'll help out with defining the politics, figuring out the politics, helping me work through the politics. But sometimes they don't want to go down that disco road, disco path, and they'll actually bypass the whole thing. And in which case, it falls back on me. I need to make the decision. I need to figure it out. Is this a disco? Do I need to go out on the dance floor? Do I need to do something? That's the definition of a good leader. Is it important enough? So if the passing it up the chain doesn't work, figure it out, find out what to do, and deal with it. So those are the four types of politics. I hope everybody enjoyed those, and thanks very much.